Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through today's 12-game slate in the association. 12 games, 11 of which start 8 Eastern time or earlier. It is going to be a wild night of hoops that will be very hard to keep track of with all these games going on simultaneously. As is the case normally on these big slates, we've got a lot of injury information to cover. With me, as always, Mike Gallagher. Mike, how are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, and really big slate today, light tomorrow. So you like this? I don't. I was playing catch up all day. Still have to do some minutes to look at. But yeah, oh my god, Wednesday, just madness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like this. I like this more
Yeah,
than 10-2 tomorrow. I'd rather have
yeah.
12-0 than 10-2. I'd rather have 6-6. Like that would be
Mm-hmm.
much, much better. But if you give me the full day off and I don't have to do the shows, that's nice. A nice win for me. So let's get into it. Tons of injury to talk to. Let's start with Dallas and Orlando. On the Dallas side, second night of a back-to-back here. They get a tight win at home against Charlotte last night. Luka left the game in the second quarter to go to the locker room, came back into the game, closed out the game. Listed as questionable tonight with the left quad soreness. Kyrie listed as questionable with a left foot sprain. Maxi Kleber listed as questionable with a right small toe dislocation. Three, big Q tags, too much bigger than the others. But this feels like a possible rest spot here or a possible take the game off spot here. Road back-to-back in Orlando. What are your thoughts on Dallas tonight?
Yeah, I was ready to go here. Hashtag 28 after season. Luca was limping for the vast majority of the game yesterday. Went to the locker room in the first quarter, and it was so obvious that this left leg is just such a problem. Left calf strain, this left quad thing has really, really been bothering him, both in FIBA, last year in the playoffs, last year in the regular season, preseason, and now again. So, I mean, it seems quite clear. You're 5-1. Just sit him, right? So I kind of think Luka's going to sit. Kyrie certainly could sit. This is a kind of minor left foot sprain that he suffered it last Friday, felt it again on Monday. They sat him out for a little bit, brought him back, looked fine, all that good stuff. But certainly seems like a rest spot to me. In a tough matchup. Orlando's been playing really, really well. I hit Orlando -1 last night, expecting some news here, and got it. I was hoping for some out tags to hit some stales, but yeah. So I guess going there, if it's one of them, we kind of know how this goes. Josh Green kind of slides in. We've seen Jaden Hardy kind of ice Jonte Exum, and there's some commentary from kids saying that Hardy's kind of earned a bigger role, so he might start. I think they're going to leave him off the bench. If it's both of them, then it would be Hardy. I think if both are out, Hardy, Green, Derek Jones Jr., Grant Williams, and then Derek Lively, you would see Exum in the rotation. You'd see Seth Curry back in the rotation. Tim Hardaway Jr. would have a pretty big role. And then we'll see it. We'll talk about Max Kleber in a second, but they have kind of enough depth, but they would lead guards with Hardy and Green for sure, and then sprinkle in some of the Exums. Curry's with the Kleber stuff. Yeah, this would take a little bit of upside off Derek Lively. Shout out to you. Really nice double bet on Derek Lively. We had an over on him too. So his minute ceiling would come down. Call it 80-20. Maxi Kleber's minutes as a center to a power forward. So it would affect the centers more than it would affect the Grant Williamses of the world and those guys. But yeah, I think that mostly sums it up on Dallas if you want to add anything.
No, not too much. Obviously, Jaden Hardy, if both guys are out, is the main guy that they trust to have the ball in his hands a ton. He would be a great DFS value play. Him icing Exum for defense is shocking and also encouraging for Jaden Hardy for a long-term value, because these are the games, right, where either Kyrie or Luka are going to miss that Jaden Hardy, Tim Hardaway Jr., those guys who can soak up usage on the team would stand out. And just wanted to, if you want to drop a little alpha here on Orlando, I don't know if this is still up. I bet this last night, but Orlando on Caesars, they have in-season like win totals still was at 37.5. They opened the season at 36.5, and they started the year 4-2 with 4 of those 6 games on the road, including a West Coast trip. So to me, that number should be like meaningfully higher than the 36.5 it opened at. So I added to my position on Orlando last night. I had them over 36.5 coming into the season, but added to the over 37.5 last night as well. Okay.
Yeah, just to hit some numbers really quick. They're like I think second best pick and roll defense. There's a top 3 rim defense. Their defense has been ridiculously good. So I'm kind of buying.
Yeah.
They've got the
Yeah.
size.
And obviously the injuries are, maybe the reason that the number was still held down with, an unclear timeline for Wendell Carter Jr. that looks like it's going to be some time. But really, I think they've outperformed the way that I would have expected them to play so heavily that I'm happy to give away that. And they have some center depth with Goga Batadze and Mo Wagner. So we should talk about the Orlando injury situation. Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Wendell Carter Jr. all listed out. Jonathan Isaac questionable here as well. I would guess that most of the Jonathan Isaac questionable tags this year that we get are probably going to be misses, would be my guess. Unless we just see like every game they start listing him. But when you see these games where they haven't listed him in a game or two and then he lists, I kind of feel like he's probably they're just going to play it super conservative here. Think the equation might be changed with the absence of Wendell Carter Jr., but I think they have enough depth to get through all this. Like they can break out Chumo Keke, they can break out Caleb Houston. They have a lot of depth on this team just naturally. And we saw that depth on display in the absence of Markelle Fultz the other night, where Anthony Black came in, their first round pick, played really, really effectively against the Lakers. Is he your expected starter tonight in the absence of Markelle Fultz?
Yeah, it should be him. Played really well. He was looking to play huge minutes, and shot the lights out of it. Made his first 4 shots, and they seem to like him really overall. Didn't do a lot of handling. The role was pretty small, and just really ran hot. So against a team where he maybe could have snuck in there, guards kind of do damage against the Lakers. So it should be same starting lineup of Black, Suggs, Franz, Powell. Goga was almost looking at 30 minutes. He lost a few to garbage time at the end. So I think he's someone that could benefit. But yeah, Black probably not maybe as safe here, especially if Luka and those guys are going. They may have to play a little bit bigger or differently and get Suggs as more of a point. But yeah, I think that's something to keep in mind. But I think the minutes are probably I think we have him at 28, which feels pretty fair.
Yeah. Who do you feel
like?
Who do you feel like would be if they chose to go in a different direction than Anthony Black, they would be choosing to play bigger, right? To have a different starter on a different defensive oriented player on Luka. Who would fit that mold? I guess it would be maybe Admiral Schofield or Caleb Houston or someone like that. But I mean, those guys it seems like really low probability.
Yeah, I think Franz is going to pick that up.
That's what I think too.
Off the bat, yeah. So I don't think it really matters. I don't think Black's guarding him regardless. He could. I think Suggs is going to guard Kyrie regardless. Again, we're assuming they're both in. But, they don't really view Black as a defender yet.
Okay, let's move to Golden State and Detroit. Golden State on the second night of a back-to-back here. We've talked about Golden State and these back-to-backs early in the season a decent bit on this show, just in the sense that they've been running minutes a little bit looser in terms of the starters not getting up to the 36s. We saw that again last night with 2 minutes left, down like 14 for an end of a back-to-back. They just pulled the ripcord. Steph ended up at 31, Clay at 32, Dre at 29. So you always worry about the Warriors on the second night of back-to-back on the injury report, but here it is. Draymond Green is the only player listed questionable. No listing for Klay Thompson. No listing for Steph Curry. So it seems like pretty safe here. I would also note this is a homecoming for Draymond Green. I imagine he really wants to play. He only gets one opportunity per year to play in his home state of Michigan. So I'm guessing that he will try to push through this if he's able to, but he's listed with that left ankle soreness. What are your thoughts on Draymond Green? And do you think we are free and clear, or are there possible downgrades to the injury report later for the Warriors?
No, Steve Kerr said they're going to play everyone, and look at these minutes. They were held in check. I think the only guy that would be on alert would be Klay Thompson. He had the Q tag yesterday, and we saw him miss the first set of a back-to-back on the front end, I think it was. So that would be a guy to watch. No Draymond. I think they really like Chris Paul off the bench, so I couldn't think if he sits, they're going to start Jonathan Kuminga. But man, the commentary, it was kind of Jacques Vaughn-esque. Without the high-end stuff. But he's like saying, okay, I want to just find guys minutes. He said, what was the exact quote? Andrew Wiggins has a long track record. We know what we have in Looney. He wants to find out what Pods and what Trace Jackson Davis, what they're going to be for this team. It's really important for them because we know that the Warriors aren't going to be this healthy all year. It's like there's literally zero, not maybe literally zero chance, but no chance basically that they're gonna have these guys fully healthy. So they want to know what they have. They want to know how they fit together. So you got to be really nervous. Wiggins' minutes again, he just can't get there, and got asked about it again, and said he was fine. So if Draymond's out, expect Kuminga to start. I think they're really like Chris Paul off the bench based on all the comments from Steve Kerr there. And then we'll see a little bit of a smaller lineup, a little bit more Moody, certainly a lot more Gary Payton, whose minutes got really cut yesterday there. But really, really annoying team with this sudden youth movement again that they have.
Yeah, it's going to be they're going to play a lot of guys at different times. We've seen Kevon Looney's minute ceiling really impacted by Dre's return. Certainly, it looks like, again, if we prioritize guys that they're going to close with in these situations, that their minutes can get more elevated. The only guys that are probably safe are Steph and maybe Dre. Those are probably the only guys that are safe. Everybody else, Clay, Wiggins, Chris Paul, Looney, Kuminga will occasionally close. I think they're all vulnerable to downside in their minutes each and every night. So far, we've seen.
You cut out, Dink. We lost you, Dink. Oh, we lost them. Okay. So just to answer the questions that are in chat, Camden asking why I went short on match. I just didn't have time yesterday. I was watching games. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. These huge slates, I have to really, really get out in front of it to cover that. So apologies. I couldn't write 8,000 to 10,000 words on a big slate, but still hit like 4K. So I hope that was helpful. And I'll be back during the week, just with the weekend with some kind of personal stuff. It takes me a while to kind of get going, to hit the full-on novels, as I call them. But I'll be back to speed on Wednesday and Friday. But cool. Where were you at, Dink? You kind of were going on.
I was just saying that in terms of closing for the Warriors, we've seen so far Looney and Wiggins kind of get hit the most by Dre's return. But I don't think it's out of the equation that at some point it's going to be Klay Thompson or Chris Paul that are hit. It's just going to be based on who's kind of playing well at given times. So far, Wiggins has not played particularly well, and we know they like to close smaller just generally. So I would just note that any of the Warriors guys except Steph, and I think Dre, when Dre is healthy, I think Dre will occasionally lose out those minutes, but I think it's going to be pretty rare. I think those two guys are pretty set. Clay is largely set, I think, just because they need extra shooting out there with the way that Chris Paul is shooting the ball this season. But Wiggins, Looney, and Clay, I think, are going to be vulnerable this year to seeing just games where it's like, like this Looney 15, the Wiggins 21. Sometimes you're going to see like a Chris Paul 22. I think these things are going to happen from time to time just because of how deep they are. Okay. Detroit side of things, Alec Burks, doubtful, still without Bojan Bogdanovic. No Joe Harris.
We're losing you again. We lost him again. All right, I'll take over this one. We saw Detroit play yesterday. Got blown out against the Suns. And Jaden Ivey had that real late Q tag, which was a pretty clear indication he was going to sit, which shout out to us. That's kind of why we bet the Killian Hayes over yesterday. So he's going to probably be game time. Obviously, he got this illness late, so we'll see if Jaden Ivey can go. No injury for Joe Harris. If they're both out, Marcus Sasser is coming. The guy was incredible yesterday. He's clearly earned a role. I'm curious to see if he's like leapfrogged Ivy in the pecking order there. And then they would probably bring in Umude to fill minutes, maybe more condensed minutes. Jalen Duren got ejected again 2 games in a row. Jalen Duren has been ejected, which is quite wild. And then we saw Asar Thompson just play so many minutes. Can he avoid foul trouble? Probably getting the Steph matchup. Obviously, Steph doesn't draw a lot of fouls. And then we could see elevated minutes out of Isaiah Stewart, maybe a little bit of Duren. And then they're probably just going to bring Umude in if they don't have anybody, but they seem to like him for on the wing as a 3-and-D kind of a player. And then obviously Killian Hayes' minutes. I don't know if we've got the guts to fire it over at him again if everyone's out, but all those guys would bet. And they've been running pretty tight, when they've been shorthanded. So Monty's kind of done that a little bit too. So I basically outlined everything, Dink, if you want to just add anything. We can just move on.
I think we can move on to San Antonio and Indy. On the San Antonio side, Keldon Johnson listed questionable here, still without Devin Vassell. Second night of a back-to-back again for another team here. So with Keldon Johnson listed questionable with the left wrist soreness, there is some legitimate concern on his availability. What are your thoughts on Keldon, and if he were to miss, how they would replace him?
So if Keldon sits, I think they would maybe start McDermott. That's kind of how they've been summing it around. They've been usually running J.D. Osman behind him. I would not be surprised. Actually, and I would not be surprised if they really shuffle things up. And which actually I take that back. I think they would start Trey Jones. I think they would start Trey Jones, make Sohan more of a wing, and then they would bring Blake Wesley in. Is this thing won't go off the screen? Oh, and I lost the screen. Okay. Now I got an ad. We're doing real well over here. So I think if he's out, I think they would go Trey, Branham, Sohan, Zach Collins, Wemby, bring in Blake Wesley off the bench, and then you'd fill in with McDermott and those guys. So you're injecting a lot of ball handling in there. You already lost, two of your top 3 ball handlers if he's out. So I think those guys would clearly benefit. It may be a little bit tighter. Pop was asked yesterday about resting players, and he literally answered the question, nope. As far as Keldon's injury, I don't know what or when it happened. I think he had like a fall, like in late 4th, kind of near the sideline. I'm not sure on this. This is kind of me just thinking through a backtrack, but he wasn't. I watched some of it. He wasn't taped up in the 4th. So this is a new injury he sustained yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on that. It wouldn't affect his minutes. We'd still project him full for a quick little wrist tweak.
Yeah, and it's left wrist, so not his shooting wrist.
Sorry.
So probably wouldn't affect his shooting either there. Okay, Indiana side, nothing to really cover here. Their G League guys are all listed questionable. Tyrese Halliburton off the injury report, not listed questionable after he had a monster game last outing, so I don't think we have anything to worry about there. Any quick notes on Indiana, or can we move on to Washington and Philly?
Then move on. We got a lot to do later today.
We sure do. Washington side of things, 3 questionable tags here: Denny Avdia, Daniel Gafford, and Corey Kispert. Big underdogs in Philadelphia here. What is your read on the 3 Washington players?
So Gafford's been relisted with this ankle. He should be good. Kispert rolled it real bad last week, and I thought for sure he was missing to get the initial Q tag. So he's 50-50. We have everybody projected in. So as far as, and then we saw Denny tweak it. Didn't look as bad compared to Kispert's and Gafford's, but most recent. So I think Gafford's almost 80%. Kispert 50-50, and then I would say Denny's 60-40 in. So we'll see. But I expect Gafford to go. How's he going to handle Embiid? Gafford is food to a lot of centers because he overhelps all the time. So certainly a big Embiid spot. Garbage time will be his biggest opponent as far as putting up a big fantasy line.
Yeah, all 3 of those players were around at shoot around. So we'll see if that improves the outlook for them. But obviously, Washington doesn't have a ton to play for already early in the season, and they're willing to play a ton of guys. So even if they miss guys here, we could still see kind of a balanced rotation in what figures to be a non-competitive environment. On the Philadelphia side, nothing on the injury report to note there. All their G Leaguers are out. Any other notes on Philadelphia before we move to the Clippers and Knicks?
Yeah, so Nick Nurse, aka the Pinocchio coach, said he wasn't going to play anybody different compared to 2 games ago, and he plays Robert Covington early. He said it was because of the matchup on Kevin Durant, and then we saw him play late he played the full 4th. So Robert Covington, I think, which we talked about, has earned a rotation spot quite clearly. What a seamless fit, right? The guy who is well known for deflections. He's always near the top of the NBA for deflections per minute. And that's what Nick Nurse lives on. He loves open floor game and capitalizing off turnovers. So I think Covington's coming. We have him, I think, for 19 minutes. We pulled back a little bit on Furkan Korkmaz, a little bit on Jaden Springer. We didn't pull back on Oubre. Oubre's just been playing so much, so we still have pretty full minutes. We are projecting garbage time here, so we took 2-3 minutes off these high end guys because they don't want to sit Tyrese Maxey, who's calling plays now on his own. Nick Nurse give him kind of free reign to run the offense, which he's certainly played well enough in with playing 40 minutes a night pretty much right near the top of the NBA for minutes.
Yeah, Maxey's been incredible. Him and Malcolm Brogdon, the ability that those guys have to have the ball in their hands so much and just not turn it over is really, really incredible. It's a special skill. All right, Clippers and Knicks. Clippers, the debut of James Harden expected tonight. We already got news on what the starting lineup is expected to be tonight, which
Mhm.
is a little bit surprising, as Russell Westbrook is not going to the bench in favor of James Harden, at least for now. They're still without Terrence Mann. I think that's a notable absence for the Clippers, and probably one that long term could be the guy that pushes Russell Westbrook to the bench. How is this going to look? Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Ivica Zubac. There's only one basketball. What are your expectations for the Clippers tonight?
Yeah, so let's talk about Harden first. He's gone through some practice. They are getting him up to speed quickly, according to Tyler, and he's picking everything up really fast. He said they're focusing more on the offensive side of things. So minutes, that's obviously the big question today. Tyler was asked about this. Shout out to the Clippers beats. They were asking some fantastic questions at practice over the weekend, and he said he will have, quote, not crazy minutes limits. So we got him at 29, I think, 29 and a half. I think he could certainly beat that. So kind of keeping an eye on what Lou says, but I think he could kill it. Obviously, he's going to start, and he's been, he was going through some stuff. He's not injured, right? So he, for all we know, he could play like 35, 40, but he said they're going to have some sort of limit on him that's not crazy. So I think 30 is a pretty good number for him. We'll probably be moving this depending on the commentary. And I feel like it's pretty unlikely we're going to move it down. Like Tyler's not going to say anything to make us want to move the minutes down, but he could say something to make us move it up. I don't think we're going to move it though. So how does this? I think so. We talked about this a lot in our Slack. I feel quite strongly that Bones Highland's minutes are very, very vulnerable. You're adding another point guard in the situation. Bones is a point guard. He's been playing shooting guard because they need him to, but I think his minutes could get really, really cut down in a big way. We saw PJ Tucker enter the mix. We saw a little bit of small ball in this Lakers game. I think it's a little bit less likely given the way that the Knicks just live on the glass. You really don't want to go small and kind of give them an advantage that they need. So I feel pretty good that Russ's minutes are safe. His role will shrink, as will Paul George's and Kawhi's in that order to me, meaning Kawhi is the smallest decrease. And then the other thing I want to note too is matchups here, right? We saw Kawhi hide, always guard, off-ball players and rotate and roam. Now I don't know if he can with Harden. So I think he's going to probably pick up the Julius Randle matchup. So that's something to consider from a foul risk and rebounding standpoint overall. But yeah, I think we know that this rotation will be those starters, which you mentioned. Tucker, Norm, Bones, and Plumlee are really a locked up 9. I think that's kind of how they're going to roll out there until they get Terrence Mann back, who did not practice over the weekend. So he doesn't sound like he's too close.
Yeah. All right. Nick's side of things, RJ Barrett questionable with this left knee issue that he's been battling. He's missed a couple of games as a result of this. What's your read on his availability tonight?
Should be in. Went through practice. Tibbs said he's good. Just had knee soreness, so we'll see if he's on the Tom Thibodeau workout plan, which is, the warm up for the Nick workout plan. But expecting RJ Barrett in. Obviously, that will bump Josh Hart to the bench, and take a little bit of minutes off. I'll take Deuce McBride out. Dante wouldn't have the high upside anymore. All that pretty straightforward.
Okay. Let's move to Lakers and Miami. On the Lakers side of things, no Rui Hachimura, no Jackson Hayes, no Jared Vanderbilt, no Gabe Vincent, and Gabe Vincent's loan return to Miami this year. So thinned out depth here for a team that, coming into the season, we were pretty excited about their depth. Coming off of kind of another blowout loss in Orlando. The Lakers win the close games, lose the games that get away from them so far. 3-0 at home, 0-3 on the road. What are expectations for what the Lakers rotation looks like tonight in Miami?
Yeah, real thin. So Taurean Prince back. He should go back in the starting lineup. They need him. I think they like Cam Reddish off the bench. So expecting the D'Lo, Reeves, Prince. Although Reddish has been pretty good. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe they limit Prince, who's had a lot of knee injuries in his career. AD and LeBron. So much for the LeBron minutes limits. There was comments. They were kind of out of this game, like mid-ish fourth. And LeBron was sitting at 28 minutes. They called timeout. And it was like, okay, is LeBron coming out? They didn't take him out. And again, it's like they lost by 20 here, 19. So that was interesting. That was a bold decision. Again, this is ever since that first game, they're just playing LeBron huge minutes. So again, going back to the bench, Christian Wood, 29 minutes. He's going to have to play a lot. They have nothing left. I don't think they're going to go to Castleton and Alex Fudge. Yes, those are real names. And to fill in the Jackson Hayes minutes, they might. But we've seen Christian Wood be like, call it 2-1 power forward to center for how the minutes were slotting in. So I think he'll probably be more of a 50-50. Maybe even 2-1 the other way to fill in the 80 minutes. But the minutes can be really, really strong. They don't have a lot of depth. Not having Rui as well. And Vanderbilt, he's kind of got free reign to get as many minutes as he wants in a matchup that's better than it has been. Miami's rim defense has been way worse this year. It's actually been like bottom 10. So yeah, I think the Lakers actually could have some tight rotation in a matchup that is suddenly not bad after Miami was first in the NBA in rim defense. And other than that, I don't really think you're going to look at Max Christie and those dudes.
Yeah, but we should note that like Max Christie just generally is the type of guy that you want if you're playing other Lakers players in the rotation, right? He's a low usage floor spacing guy who just kind of, allows other fantasy production for everybody else in a PJ Tucker-esque kind of way. So I should note that the more that he plays, the better it is for the ceilings of Russell, Reeves, LeBron, AD, so on and so forth. Okay, Miami side of things, very full injury report as usual for Miami. We'll start kind of tag ourselves down. So Caleb Martin out, RJ Hampton doubtful, Nikola Jovic questionable, Jimmy Butler probable, and then I think they listed almost everybody else. Duncan Robinson probable, and then I think almost everybody else on the team was listed as available. So Bam Adebayo, Thomas Bryant, Haywood Highsmith, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kevin Love, and Orlando Robinson and Drew Smith all available. So the Heat are taking their injury reporting very seriously and listing everybody almost. What's your notes here on?
So Haywood Highsmith's available. He got hurt with about 10 seconds left in the first half. It actually looked terrible. He had the trainer go with him down the stretch. Oh, my 28 after has gone off. You can still hear me okay? Okay. So yeah, Duncan Robinson's injury is new, so I think we're going to keep an eye on that. We know Miami, we kind of always are skeptical how they're going to go there, but it should be mostly the same rotation. I think Haywood Highsmith will maintain the starting job. Kevin Love booted out of the rotation. You and I were really on this for the DFS show that this could come along here. So I think Haywood Highsmith may have been cut down a little bit by the little leg tweak he had at the end of the first half. So I think he could be getting mid-20s minutes. Josh Richardson's minutes are a little bit vulnerable, but Jaime Jaquez doesn't have a minutes limit anymore. Seems like he's pretty safe in the rotation. We'll see if Duncan can play that many minutes again. And then, Kyle Lowry's minutes are kind of getting cut down again now that they have some options here. And my God, Tyler Hero just minute after minute is playing so many of them. So, yeah, he's got a huge projection for us for minutes wise. We got him at 37, which we almost never do. But the guy's played 39 per game over his last 5, and that's with no overtimes. So they are really letting Tyler Hero get all the minutes he can handle.
He was chasing a triple-double, which is why they kept him in a little bit longer than they normally would in that instance. So I think Hero in that if the situation was a blowout, like again, I think he would have played like 34 last game, but he was literally 1 assist away and they just kept chasing it for a while. It is interesting though that they're more comfortable playing Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero together, something that they were very uncomfortable doing last year. And I think just as a note, Jimmy Butler, Hero are really locked in for their spots, but I think the other 2 spots are going to be pretty hot hand-ish. Like I don't think there's a lot separating Haywood Highsmith, Josh Richardson, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Kyle Lowry, like in Duncan Robinson. I don't think there's a lot separating those guys. So if somebody's got it going on a given night, you could see their minutes scale up and other guys kind of come down. A lot of these minutes being more balanced was due to this game being kind of out of hand. As you can see, Washington cut this from a 24-point deficit going into the third quarter down to 7 to close. Let's move to Milwaukee.
Just add some more stuff on the Love stuff. He said he hated to make the move. It was a now decision, but very much sounds like a multiple game thing, just to add that.
Yep. Yeah. And I think Kevin Love is there for insurance. I think the interesting thing will be to see if like Kevin Love can compete with Thomas Bryant for center minutes, right? Because the other thing, this is happening to Kevin Love while Caleb Martin's out. Like Caleb Martin's going to return at some point. And so where is Kevin Love really competing? And so I think it's going to be interesting to kind of monitor that situation. All right. Milwaukee and Brooklyn on the Milwaukee side, nothing to really touch on here. Chris Middleton not listed on the injury report. Any notes about his minutes limits or your expectations for him or anything else from Milwaukee?
Yeah, minutes were up. We saw him play his first fourth quarter minutes of the season the last time they played. And I mentioned this on some show that they were literally calling timeouts to get him out at like as close to the 16 or 17 minute limit that he was on. Like the second they would get the ball when the clock turned to 17 for his minutes, they would freaking pull him. It was wild. So the minutes are definitely up for him. How much are they up? I don't know that part. But Adrian Griffin said they are going to start to play him more. So I haven't looked at their minutes yet, but would probably be 23. I think he's starting to ramp up and look a little bit better there. Obviously, that takes a little bit away from the. And I should mention Malik Beasley got cut hard. They closed with Jay Crowder in this game against the Knicks with all that size. So yeah, Beasley, which we kind of thought Beasley may start to like fade down because he's such a bad defender. And they also another kind of scheme note they had. They ran drop. There was a comment from Adrian Griffin saying the players knew better than the coaches, and that they thought that they should play drop more because it was so successful for them after being, going into this game, they were 29th in defense with only the Wizards being better than them. So on top of, so they've got the players calling the defense, and then Adrian Griffin, so they just let Damian Lillard run the offense. So Adrian Griffin just has the easiest job in the world. Just lets the players figure everything out. Love to see it for a championship caliber team. Certainly going through the motions and learning a lot. But yeah, I think that mostly and a good matchup. The Nets have been a pretty bad defense. They play really fast as well. So I think the Bucks could kind of announce to the NBA that this kind of slowish start that they've had is maybe behind them.
Yeah, also a good matchup in the sense that the only thing that really kept this game competitive was the fact that they were absolutely destroyed on the boards. And that is something that probably won't happen against Brooklyn as much. Okay, Brooklyn side, a lot of injuries to recap here. Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson still out. They're also without the G League guys, Tariq Whitehead, Keon Johnson, Noah Clowney. Lonnie Walker listed probable. There's a little bit of a scare last game in that like 30 minutes before the game was set to lock, Lonnie Walker appears on the injury report as questionable with this left knee soreness. He ends up plays through the game fine, kind of has his normal role. I'd say a little bit lighter minutes, like just a little bit of minutes kind of cut out as Brooklyn kind of chased this game a little bit down the stretch. But what are your thoughts? Like, for Lonnie, we've been looking at overs on him whenever they've kind of come up of late, because there's been a big role as kind of this like sixth man in the absence of Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton. But we did see the minutes curtail a little bit last game with the questionable tag. He's listed probable again, left knee soreness. Any concerns that he's not able to get into those like upper 20s that they've had before?
Yeah, so why did that happen? I mean, pretty easy, right? Look at the starter minutes. They
Right.
really just played their guys, so there just wasn't minutes for him to have. So
And this was without Ben
this was
Simmons,
with
I should note as well.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say this is without Ben Simmons. You're adding Ben Simmons in the mix. I haven't looked at Brooklyn's minutes yet. I will do that after this. So, but yeah, I think his minutes are real shaky. This one, and again, they were kind of going to go a little bit bigger here, so that Day'Ron Sharpe cutting him a little bit, but they ran real tight. So he's quite clearly, I think, their best bench piece that they're going to have. I guess Royce O'Neal, if you factor. So he's kind of like their 7th, 8th-ish man. He's kind of run even with Dennis Smith Jr. And it looked like were a little bit of a gap there. So, but yeah, I think that that's mostly their rotation, right? Their starters, Royce, maybe some Day'Ron, Dennis Smith, Lonnie Walker, and that's kind of it. But they're going to be pretty top heavy as they wait for Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton to return from injuries.
Yep. Atlanta and OKC on the Atlanta side. The only injury tag notable here is DeAndre Hunter listed available with a right pinky finger dislocation. Some question mark over whether that will impact shooting at all. Any notes or thoughts there on the Hawks, and if this injury is something to be aware of that it could impact DeAndre Hunter's shooting and thus his upside?
No, I mean, matchup's pretty good. 3-point funnel on the OKC side, and a pace game. The OKC Thunder have the fastest offense, and the Atlanta Hawks have the second fastest offense. So it'll be a lot of possessions in this game. But yeah, it was a really good game from Hunter. After the game, Quinn Snyder said that he should have deserved the front page of all the Hawks stuff that was going to come out just because of his defense and impact on the game. When he scores 4 points, to get that kind of rave reviews from your coach, it really shows that they love him. But they're kind of oscillating this Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey stuff. I think Jalen Johnson's going to start more often than not. Did that change a little bit here in this matchup against OKC, a 3-point funnel, which I mentioned? Something to keep an eye on. Either way, we know Jalen Johnson will get a ton of minutes, playing freaking awesome. Shout out to you for being your guy there. But yeah, expect this rotation to be pretty solid and, again, pretty tight. AJ Griffin's toasties.
Yeah, tough scene for AJ Griffin there. On the Oklahoma City side, they did something that they've done a couple times last year, which is
Mm-hmm.
overnight list Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out, and then first thing in the morning bring him back into a questionable tag. I saw Justin Fan interacting with Brad Rowland, one of the Hawks beats, about this on Twitter, noting that a couple times this happened last year, and each time Shai Gilgeous-Alexander played. So I think that should be the base expectation going forward, but Shai is listed questionable with left knee sprain. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it'd be good. Everyone thought it was an ankle injury when he suffered it last week, and Mark Daigneault said no, he hyperextended his knee. Didn't sound like there was any concern. Just like, okay, you tweaked your knee, take a game off, and you'll be back to full. So we got him for 35 minutes, expecting him to play. As you mentioned, Fan noted that this happens all the time. This is why I'm hashtag 28 after gang. You got to be ready for injury reports in the middle of the day, especially the 12:31:30s. But yeah, so expecting him to start. That will bump Cason Wallace back to the bench, who picked up the Steph assignment. Talk about throwing everything you can at this rookie. They get Cason Wallace out there to guard almost all the Steph minutes they can. He's been freaking awesome. I thought he would have probably got the Trae Young matchup. So if SGA doesn't play for some reason, then Cason would probably pick up the Trae matchup. But Cason's going to play a lot. Mentioned this on the last show. Like, he's already launched up to number 6 on this rotation. They did bring Jalen Williams back, the big. Didn't run all the center minutes with him in Chet, but I would expect those two to get all the center minutes today, as Ousmane Dieng will be more of a 4. We'll see how much gets cut down. And then Isaiah Joe's in there. So I think that's like your core 8. I think Aaron Wiggins is next. And then we saw Micic, as I mentioned, would be back in the rotation for ball handling. But he would go away if SGA is back. You certainly don't need the ball handling. But yeah, fun game. Really good game environment as well. So excited for that one for the later start today.
That OKC Warriors game was one of the best games of the year in terms of offensive execution. And obviously 141, 139 looks really fun and up and down, but really there was a lot of good shooting in that game that drove the score up. You saw their OKC shot over 50% from 3, the Warriors 45% from 3. So really fun game to kick off the tournament stuff, which was cool. All right, Boston and Minnesota. Boston side of things, we did get some midday, a little bit of hokey pokey from Boston. Derek White was listed probable, now listed out for personal reasons. Kristaps Porzingis added to the injury report as questionable with a right eye sty, which is an interesting injury listing. I don't think I've seen that one before. And Oshae Brissett also listed questionable here. We have seen Boston is just willing to play their main guys 40 plus each and every night, which is an interesting approach to a team that is blowing a lot of opponents out so far, and is also fairly thin on the roster side of things. No Derek White tonight. Obviously, that should insert Al Horford back into the starting lineup against a bigger Minnesota team. It's just a natural fit anyway. Should elevate the minutes for Peyton Pritchard here as well. But if they're without Porzingis and Oshae Brissett, then what happens is kind of the question mark. So walk us through what your expectations are for Boston tonight, especially if they were to miss Porzingis.
Yeah, so they would start Horford for sure, obviously, and then they would probably start Pritchard, I would think, to go Drew, Pritchard, Tatum, Brown, and Horford. Actually, matchup. I take that back.
I think Hauser.
Yeah, that's probably a little too small against them. And they might even – no, they probably wouldn't do that. Yeah, I think Hauser makes more sense. Yeah, so I take that back. So I would go Hauser starting, Pritchard off the bench. Just Minnesota's just freaking gigantic. Just random note, they ran a freaking Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert cat lineup and for multiple minutes over the weekend, which is, oh my God, this guy's crazy. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, so those guys would benefit. And then, yeah, actually, I got the injury news from Derek White from my girlfriend. She's friends with his sister and found out he's away for the baby. But so he's having a baby. So it's good news for personal reasons for him. Yeah. So,
nice.
But yeah, other than that, I think I mostly covers it.
All right, Minnesota side, nothing to note on the injury report, just without their G League guys. I will note that I was originally thinking this was going to be a really nice spot for Kyle Anderson, but the Derek White absence really changes the dynamics of the rotations quite a bit and allows Minnesota to play kind of their double bigs together a little bit more. But any Minnesota rotation notes from you for tonight?
No, just to watch out for this. They want to play this triple big lineup with Naz Reid as a 3, which is insane for the guy who was playing straight 5 last year. Now he's a 3. Yeah, pretty fun rotation. I think they're going to play it again. They trust him to guard in space, Naz Reid. So that's a pretty fun lineup. Maybe they run Kyle Anderson as a 2 or a 1 even to go full on into it. But yeah, other than that, this team's healthy. McDaniels had foul trouble. He'll have the Jason Tatum assignment for sure. And this team is rolling. 83 half-court defensive rating is first in the NBA by a lot. They're first in defense overall. They have shored up their transition defense. Chris Finch said after the game that they were showing players film and putting, you see that you put the highlighter on a player. They do it a lot in like ESPN. They were like highlighting players who weren't getting back on defense and like outing them on film, which was pretty cool to see. So I mean, it's worked. But yeah, Minnesota's legit. We kind of thought this team would be good on defense. And they certainly are. They look like they're going to be a top 2 or 3 defense in the NBA. But Boston also number 2 in defense. So, 2 really, really good defenses going against each other today.
Yeah, sort of a low-key important part of the early part of the season for both a fantasy and a real-life perspective is Rudy Gobert's block rate has rebounded in a big way this year after having a really down year blocking shots last year. That was really odd because he didn't have another big that he was playing alongside, but his block rate just disappeared last year. It's back early on this season. Sacramento and Houston. Sacramento still without De'Aaron Fox. No Trey Lyles as well. Any notes on the Sacramento side of things?
Yeah, we just saw this over the weekend. Mike Brown was hot. He was not happy about how his team played it in Houston on Saturday. Talked a lot of effort. Did take, kind of taking it apart, deconstructing. It seemed like he was not happy with Keegan Murray. Overall, didn't really affect him too much minutes-wise. And this is from a defense. And Mike Brown will never get mad at you for offense. He will only get mad at you for defense, which is funny for a team that's as bad on defense as they are. But I digress. Yeah, I don't really think there's too much to say. They're going to start Davion. Malik Monk will get a pretty good role. Chris Duarte kind of came along here. Really big minutes from him as well as Kevin Huerter is just not having it. And this has been like a consistent thing for like pretty much a month now since we saw him get benched and he wasn't happy about it. So Kayvon, it's going to be wild till we see Kayvon again.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he was the guy that benefited a lot last year in the absence of De'Aaron Fox. His minutes really kind of soared up. It seems like he's fallen down the pecking order of confidence this year behind Keegan Murray, behind Malik Monk, and sort of competing with Chris Duarte straight for some of these minutes, which is a little bit concerning. Davion Mitchell, same thing as always here, where like his minutes are going to be very, very dependent on the opponent that you're playing. And if it's like an on-ball scoring smallish point guard, he's probably going to see his minutes spike up a little bit. If it's the Fred VanVleet types or whatever, it's probably going to get stuck in these upper 20s because they need the offense with Malik Monk and the playmaking. And they're not going to play those two guys together very frequently. So a note there. Houston side of things, still no Tari Eason, no Amin Thompson as well here. So what are your notes on how Houston handles the absence of their rookie lottery pick?
Yeah. Aaron Holiday is basically Amin Thompson's role. They've been slotting him in there, subbing him at the same time, getting a little bit of overlap with FEV, kind of where we're at. Amin Thompson was kind of on thin ice already, so grade 2 ankle sprain, he'll be out for a little bit. Other than that, Jayshawn Tate, they really like him. And then finally, Jabari Smith is kind of coming here after a really slow start. Certainly a couple beneficial matchups helped him out there. And Dylan Brooks continues to play really, really well, man. The guy's having a really good start to the year, despite everyone wants to hate on him, which he wants. He wants you to call him the villain, all that stuff. Şengün has played really well, man. Their paint defense has been really strong. Udoka's kind of off. They're not really winning games, but I think they're just playing a little bit better. They're not laughably bad on defense anymore. Fred VanVleet, really good matchup. Obviously takes advantage of it with 12 dimes. I think he was on pace for more of them early on. But yeah, with the starters we know we're going to see Tate, Landale, Aaron Holiday, and then Jeff Green here and there. So we mostly have this rotation figured out. And Reggie Bullock's kind of out. We'll see if we always thought that was weird, but like I've been saying, like they got enough on-ball defenders. They don't need him. So it was really odd signing. Maybe he just likes Texas a lot, going from Dallas to San Antonio to Houston. But saving some taxes. But yeah, go ahead.
I imagine there will be a buyout at some point this season, and he will end up on a contender where he should have signed in the first place. But kind of strange. Utah and Chicago. On the Utah side of things, they're just without all their G League guys, so no real notes there from an injury perspective. Do you have anything to add on Utah?
No, just that I'll 3-point funnel. Bulls allow the most 3-pointers per possession in the NBA. So if you're going to play Jazz, play shooters.
Bulls side of things, well. Bulls side of things, Alex Caruso listed probable. Ayo Dosunmu questionable here with that upper respiratory illness that cost him some games over the weekend. Patrick Williams listed probable here. He lost his starting job over the weekend to Torrey Craig. Played really well in the first game of that back-to-back, not so well in the second game. What are your notes here on the Bulls and the probable and questionable tags on some of their role players here?
Yeah, Ayu probably back. We saw that tag going into the weekend. Usually, guys are better from an illness that in that time, so I think he's back. I don't think it matters. He's barely playing. And then Caruso's always banged up, man. Just the way that guy plays, he's going to get a lot of probable and questionable tags. So expecting them in there. DeMar got a questionable rest tag, which we very rarely see. And he plays out there. He did not play well, and this team got complete. And I actually bet this at half, even with Jamal Murray out. I bet the Nuggets live, and they blew the doors off them. Mike Malone said it was their best third quarter. So the real news is on the other side, which we'll eventually get to.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just go there? We're going to New Orleans and Denver, the last game of the slate. Normally we'd start with the road team, but since we're here, we can talk about the absence of Jamal Murray. Only played 10 minutes last game, right hamstring strain. He's out. They're still without Vlatko Konchar, who they'll miss for the whole season, obviously. This is kind of a more difficult hole to plug than they had to last year, right? They had Bruce Brown, who could fill in for anybody in the starting lineup. When you have Jokic, you can pretty much play without a point guard if you want. But the options are a little bit more limited. If they do slide Reggie Jackson into that starting role, how do they stagger rotations and whatnot? Because really Reggie Jackson has been relied upon to kind of carry a second unit from an offensive perspective in the few minutes that Jamal and Jokic don't play in their rotations. And then there's minutes where Reggie goes to the bench and then Jamal kind of carries the second unit. So what's your expectations here? I know Strother was kind of coming on in the preseason. We saw Gillespie kind of get the role the other night. I think they're going to prioritize ball handling a little bit more, which would mean more Gillespie. He's ahead of Pickett, so him over Pickett right now, then Strother or like Holiday or something like that. But what are your thoughts here on the Nuggets?
Yeah, so I feel very confident in this, that it's going to be Reggie Jackson obviously starting and getting, pretty much 90% of Murray's minutes. Obviously, he's going to lose his own, right? But we have him at 31 minutes, and I think he could really beat it. There was commentary saying they want to make sure that Reggie Jackson's out there in the non-Jokic minutes, and then have Gillespie out there, who I'll get to. So I think Reggie Jackson's in kind of like a really big spot. I think he's going to just basically slide in. Obviously, he's not as good of a player as Jamal Murray is, and he won't have as much touches and as much. Mike Malone also called him a score first guard, which to me is like, okay, man, they are going to run a lot of offense through Jokic here. So I was almost going to cover boy Jokic in a matchup that's so. But yeah, anyways. So again, I think Reggie Jackson, I don't know what the DFS prices are, but he should be like 5,500, 6K. I think he's going to have a really big role from a minutes and shot standpoint. Assists may not be there. Colin Gillespie, really great. Got the game ball from Mike Malone in the locker room, and they were really happy with his performance. Came in the third and put the game away, man. He was really, really effective. And yeah, the commentary is there. I think he's got all the non-Reggies. I think that they are a little small to run overlap, especially against a pretty big Pelicans team. So I don't think we're going to overlap at all. But I think they would cover the 48. I think that he's, pretty much ahead. We saw Julian Strother sub in after Murray pulls his hamstring, and then they basically call Strother over, sub him in, and then he doesn't play until garbage time. So yeah, quite clearly Gillespie's going to be the guy. They were running the Reggie Jackson overlap when this happened, for what it's worth. I don't think they're going to do that, as I mentioned. So yeah, quite clearly Reggie benefits the most. Gillespie benefits the next most. Jokic benefits a little bit. Michael Porter, who's playing really well. Michael Porter Jr. is up to a really good start offensively. Aaron Gordon, we know he could handle. You see the 5 assists on the screen. He was really good. So yeah, going to piece it together, but I think I kind of laid everything out there.
Yeah, the other thing that I'll note is, especially with this matchup with Herb Jones on the perimeter, who is playing exceptionally well early in the season defensively, especially at taking the ball away from opponents. I would imagine that it's just easier to run an offense through Jokic than it is to run an offense. Even if Jamal was healthy in this matchup, I think it would be easier to run the offense through Jokic and do a bunch of the dribble handoff stuff, as opposed to running it through Murray. New Orleans side of things, We got the unfortunate news yesterday that CJ McCollum has a collapsed lung and is going to miss some time. Add him to the list with Trey Murphy, Najee Marshall, and Jose Alvarado for a Pelicans team that just never seems to be at full strength. So how do they handle the absence of CJ McCollum?
Yeah, really tough one. CJ had a really funny tweet, which I'll try to pull up in a second, about a picture that was out there. But yeah, so they're going to start Dyson Daniels. I feel pretty confident in that. We know they've been running Kyra Lewis behind CJ from a sub pattern standpoint with a little bit of overlap, especially when they were really shorthanded, when they were missing multiple players in their first unit, and they were starting Matt Ryan. So that shows you how desperate they were. But anyways, so yeah, I expect Dyson Daniels to play upper 20s minutes, maybe hit 30 if he's running good. Kyra Lewis overlapping a little bit behind him. Certainly, we'll see decent bit of Matt Ryan. Jordan Hawkins will still have a pretty big role, being more of a 2 and a 3 versus really a straight 3 when they were missing Brandon Ingram. Clearly, they're okay giving him shots, and they want him to shoot. I mean, he's just firing away. You see 8 threes in 24 minutes. Yeah, I don't think really Matt Ryan's role changes too much. Larry Nance's role doesn't change much. And then Brandon Ingram, right? Brandon Ingram, we saw him run the second unit when he was away from CJ. He'll have a really, really, really big ball handling role. Yes, I needed 3 reallys for him. So I think he's got a tremendous upside. Matchups not great. Going to probably see a lot of KCP. Zion getting Aaron Gordon there in a tough matchup. Zion in altitude doesn't really sound fun, but yeah. So again, Dyson Daniels, big beneficiary. Certainly a guy that could deserve some DFS love.
Yeah, I would also note I wouldn't be totally shocked. I think Daniels is absolutely the favorite, obviously, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if they started Hawkins just because they do need a little shooting in this first lineup. Ingram's going to handle the ball a ton, so it's just a matter of like Daniels will bring the ball up for them, and then Ingram will initiate offense essentially. But if they decide that hey, like we just don't have any shooting, and we need, it's CJ. CJ's always been very good at Twitter or X. If they decide that they need the shooting, I could see scenarios where Hawkins ends up in the lineup a little bit more than Daniels, just because, especially with this matchup against KCP and Aaron Gordon, space is going to be kind of at a premium. Now, Daniels has shot the ball pretty well early in the season. So again, I think this is the overwhelming favorite that it's Dyson Daniels to start and play a lot of minutes. But I think there's an outside chance that Jordan Hawkins could be competing with Daniels because Ingram is considered more of a point guard in the new configuration of these lineups.
And I think one thing to add to that too, without Jamal Murray, because Herb would have got that matchup, because I think without Murray, they basically have like Dyson Daniels as the emergency sub. Like, okay, Herb gets in foul trouble, bam, go Dyson. Now you don't have that much, as much here. I think that makes it a little bit more likely there.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that'll do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, if you enjoy the content that we are providing here, please help circulate it within the algorithm by pressing, smashing, holding down, touching, caressing, whatever you'd like to do with that like button. Please do that. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live. All of that stuff helps feed the algorithm. It helps us feed our families and allows us to keep feeding you the NBA injury information and analysis you need to make your spread bets, prop bets, and your DFS lineups. So we really appreciate it. Please help support our free content here on this YouTube channel. If you are interested in checking out our paid content behind our paywall at establishedrun.com, go to subscribe tab. You'll get more information on our player props, our DFS packages in season, and so on, so forth. Mike Gallagher's matchups column 3 times a week. Full statistical projections for every player, every game. And of course, top plays 6 times a week and live shows, which myself and Gary Hartman will be behind the paywall tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern time, breaking down this massive 12-game slate. As a programming schedule reminder, we will not be on the air tomorrow. There are no NBA games tomorrow. So if you're looking for an injury report analysis for tomorrow's 0 NBA games, I suggest scouring the internet in a different direction. We will be back on Wednesday for a massive 14-game slate. Enjoy the hoops tonight. We'll see you again Wednesday. Take care, everybody.